Shane Reti has been in the news recently, quite a bit actually, over the last couple of weeks. He is the National Party's health spokesperson, and I interviewed him actually earlier this week on my show to do with riding in the back of St John's ambulances so that he could get first-hand understanding of what the emergency health and emergency departments were like in New Zealand, as St John's Ambulance attends as a series of health crises and then rushes them to emergency departments all over New Zealand. Now, I interviewed Shane earlier on this issue, and it seemed a perfectly understandable and logical explanation that he was going to be, if he was going to be the Minister of Health, it was important and critical to know what was happening at the true coalface of the health workforce, and that this was one way of achieving that. And he did so with the complete cooperation and with his itinerary, no doubt, probably being mapped out by St John's Ambulance, who also wanted to get him to get inside understanding of what they do as well. Well, you would have seen over the weekend, particularly on Sunday, that the Liberal media went for Shane Reti on, did you get the consent of the people? Which is just a bizarre thing to ask, and there has been criticism of that. Well, he stood up for that pretty well, and I have to say, and he has said, I will continue to do this, and if I've got the permission of people, organisations who are going to allow me to get an inside view of what's really happening in a health sector that I'm expected to be responsible for one day, what's wrong with that? Well, you might ask. But he has a new crusade and new information about another aspect of the health system that ain't working, and he joins us now. Dr. Shane Reti, welcome to the show. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Michael. Good to speak with you.
Now, we've talked a lot about disinformation and misinformation, but you're suggesting that maybe the health bureaucracy is part of this now.
Yes, so several things. There are a number of reports that Asher Birrell is refusing to release, including a $1.5 million contract that was awarded to a organisation that's called That's Us, and she received, it was a vaccination program that vaccinated people after 85 to 87% had already been vaccinated. Had an independent report in this last year. It was full of badness. The program organiser commissioned her university student nephew and his girlfriend, and it's just a lot of bad things around it. Anusha Bradley chased it, and she got an independent report. And a year later, she still won't release it.
And that is the former Radio New Zealand board member Jason Aki's partner, isn't it? They've got that contract.
How did you know that, Michael? You're absolutely right.
Well, you see, I just do a little bit of research. You're absolutely right. So it was exposed by Radio New Zealand, I think, last year, or you might have been involved in that as well too, Shane. But are you saying that the report into that, which would seem to be $1.5 million poured down a drain somewhere, is not being released? Why? Why is the Minister of Health not releasing that, given that the woman, as I understand it, has now resigned, the contract has been voided, and Radio New Zealand must be also asking the same question, I presume?
I am so impressed you know the details, Michael. I spoke about this in general debate yesterday, and your answer is yes. She had an independent review done by a lawyer in Wellington, received that middle of last year, and is still refusing to release it.
Why?
It's a great question. That's why I said to her in the House yesterday, release that report and release the report into the Māori Health Authority. None of us have any idea why she will not release it, other than almost certainly it's bad news.
The embarrassment of not releasing the report, and eventually I presume you'll go to the Ombudsman, will you, and seek to get their intervention on this matter?
Yes, immediately went to the Ombudsman as soon as she declined to release it to me. Went to the Ombudsman. Look, Peter can take 6 to 18 months sometimes to resolve a complaint to the Ombudsman. So that's still in process. But a year later, don't buy it. That was a significant amount of money that looks like it was misappropriated and wasted.
And no charges, though, came out of that, because, as you say, the conflicts of interest there were pretty clear as well, between the contracting agency and the person who got the contract too, weren't they?
That's exactly right. Furthermore, the argument was made, they signed conflict of interest forms, but they refused to produce any signed conflict of interest forms. So there's just a lot of murkiness here, and the easiest way is to release the independent report.
Now, that was aimed, I think, at the Maori community, getting the Maori community to update from memory, Shane, or at least to uptake further the vaccination or the COVID vaccinations. But you're saying
yes, it was.
Is that right?
And when you look at it was, and the content wasn't paid for 1.59 million anyway. Remember, this was commissioned by the Hearing Hauora, which is the health promotion unit. And in one of the videos, they had a young man with a hose to a bottle of beer, and in another one they had KFC, none of which alcohol and fast food in any way consistent with health promotion principles. It was the strangest thing.
No, it's sort of par for the course. Now, but that was the next issue. You've had a problem with the Maori Health Authority from day one. You're saying we don't need it. This is not the way in which to improve Maori health by a separate authority or entity. But you're now suggesting that their staff numbers have been misreported to Parliament. Can you give us some detail on that, mate?
Yeah, I can. I tried for a long time. Māori Health Authority came into being 1 July last year, and that was under Andrew Little's watch. And I used all the tools I could to find out how many full-time equivalents with the organisation. And Andrew danced. He would not give me an answer. I tried everything I could, and I just could not winkle it out of them. Then what happens is the portfolio is passed over to Aisha Verrill, and when that happens, you have to do what's called a briefing to an incoming minister, a BIM. And that's where they spelled it out, that in February this year there were 227 full-time equivalents with the Māori Health Authority. And even then I looked at that number, for goodness me, that's a biggish number for what outcomes to that point anyway. So I kept an eye on that, and we had the Chief Executive in front of us in the Health Select Committee about 2 weeks ago. And one of the questions I asked her was, how many full-time equivalents will there be at full establishment? And quick as a flash, she said to me, and to the whole Health Select Committee, 321. Well, this is a significant escalation in less than 6 months from 227, almost a 57% increase, which was kind of startling. I then probed other questions and got a correction back a few days ago saying, no, actually, that was a mistake. It wasn't 321. And I thought, oh, thank goodness, maybe it's a lot less. In fact, it's worse. It's 400. So we have to imagine this is triple the number of people, roughly, that Pharmac has, and Pharmac has double the budget. 400 full-time equivalents at full establishment for the Māori Health Authority. Show me an outcome. If there's a good outcome that you can show me to that, great, let's talk about it. And in fact, that's what I want with the report that they're also hiding. This is the second report that they got on May 5. The Minister received on May 5, which is an independent review of the Māori Health Authority, and she is refusing to release that as well. Now, the sector's told me what that's looking like, and it's looking like bad news. That's why she's not releasing it. She needs to release that report and explain 400 full-time equivalents, one outcome that's better for that. That's what I'm interested in, the outcomes.
Quite apart from the issue that you've identified here, the thing that's really scary is that this kind of information is not being made publicly available. I mean, that you had to go through what you've explained to me to get access to something as basic as staff numbers at a government department. I'm sorry, but that would never have happened in a parliament in which I served. Is it becoming... Why? I mean, why is the Speaker allowing this to continue? Why has this suddenly become de rigueur that you can just simply withhold information that should automatically be released, you would think?
Yeah, we're getting multiple instances of smoke and mirrors and a complete lack of transparency. I remember about 10 days ago, we found out that Asha Verrill had instructed her team her team had instructed Health New Zealand to withhold the release of performance data so that it didn't conflict with other announcements. There's something very awkward about that. Withholding of instructing your operational arm that, no, we know this is bad news data, we know ED wait times are going to be worse, in fact all the wait times will be worse, so can you delay that because we don't want to mess up some of our good news stories. This is all a picture of lack of transparency, playing with the soundbite, trying to get the information has been impossible. I could not, with all my tools, written questions, everything an opposition MP has, winkle this out of Andrew Little. It was only when the minister changed and the officials had to do a briefing to the incoming minister that I could get a first look at actually how many numbers there were at the Māori Health Authority.
We pay you, Shane, as an opposition member of Parliament, and in your particular role as a senior spokesperson of the opposition party in a major area of expenditure, to hold the government to account. And your asking of parliamentary questions is sort of automatic. If you ask a simple, prosaic question, it seems to me, how many staff do you have? That information should be automatically available to you. You would think that they would, in actual fact, proactively let that information go. Why would Little have withheld that information from you?
The best conclusion I could draw was because he would reach the same view that I had, that it was a large number of people doing something that we can't determine. What were they doing? What were their outcomes? And what would be the total amount of funding and wages and salaries bill with those large number of people? That's the conclusion I would draw, that it was not a good news story. He could see where I was going with it, because I'd heard from the sector, have you seen how many people the Māori Health Authority has employed? So it wasn't just cold fishing. The sector's been concerned. And it came to me, and I used the tools that I have to try and get something more firm, something quantitative, that I could talk to authoritatively rather than just what someone told me. And so I think he knew, and they knew, his officials knew, that I know where Shane Reti's going, and this is not good news for us. So let's see if we can just say, oh, that's operational, that's not up to us. Those were the sort of replies that I was getting.
Oh, that's madness. I wouldn't take that from a local government official as an elected member, far less a senior politician at Parliament. That's just madness. Tell me, the Maori Health Authority, just for our listeners, what is the Maori Health Authority meant to do? It's a separate wing to the new Ministry of Health. What's its primary aegis?
So one of its key roles is to hold the whole health system to account for Māori health outcomes. And here's one of its major problems. And Heather Simpson, when she architected the system, if you like, she raised this as an issue as well. So the Māori Health Authority is responsible for looking across the whole health system as sort of the Māori health inequities policeman, if you like. Problem is, they're also a provider arm. They provide services, and so they're policing themselves as well, and that's a terrible conflict of interest to have, an almost unresolvable conflict of interest. And Heather Simpson said, if the Māori Health Authority is commissioning, it will be a third health system, and the system will lose cohesion. It's also, and with respect, I think Māori have been duped here as well, because remember, it was supposed to be the partner. This was the partner in the health system for Māori. Well, I would put to you that partnership is a joke, because when we look at the therapeutic partnership bill, therapeutic products bill, the Māori Health Authority had to submit to us at Select Committee, along with 16,500 other New Zealanders, to get their point across. Hang on, how come your partner has to stand in a queue and knock on the door? You're supposed to be a partner at the table, not joining 16,500 other New Zealanders in the queue. What sort of partnership is that? So I think Māori's actually been duped as well, Michael.
When you first came out, both yourself and ACT came out saying that you would disestablish the Maori Health Authority, a series of NGOs, including the Lung Foundation, Kidney Health New Zealand, Stroke Foundation, Breast Cancer Aotearoa Coalition, blah, 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 came out, NGOs in the public health sector, and had a go at you for doing so. I take it that since then you've had a chat to all those organisations?
I meet with them in various forums, and amongst other things, my ability to speak authoritatively in this role is that I ran one of the longest free marae-based health clinics in the Upper North Island for decades. So anyone who wants to tell me about delivering Māori health in the community when you've done more time than I have on the marae, you can come and tell me something I don't know.
Yeah,
Makes it kind of hard for them to shoot. Makes it hard to shoot me, Michael.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yes, it does. Oh, yes, you're well insulated against that. But they haven't changed their minds. Why would NGOs want to do that except from an ideological bent? Because as you point out, it's likely to fracture, in actual fact, health assistance to Māori.
Look, it is ideological. The argument being that, look, things haven't been working, we need to do something different. That something different needs to be rational, well-founded, structured, have good quality, all those sorts of things. And I just don't see that with the Māori Health Authority. Plus, that at the end of the day, that core principle that I will die in a ditch for, that health resources must be distributed on health need first and foremost. The moment we move away from that, tomorrow we'll be distributing them on the depth of your pocket, and the day after that, your contribution to society, and we just head down a terrible slippery slope. I absolutely acknowledge the inequities that are there, but health resources must first and foremost be distributed on health need.
Yes, which is how you deal with the inequities, I would have thought too, if it's going to be based on need first. So let me get this absolutely clear. If the National Party is elected in less than 3 months now, the Maori Health Authority will be disestablished, yes?
Yes, I will disestablish the Maori Health Authority, and we have plans how we can deliver health outcomes for Māori well and beyond what the Maori Health Authority ever could.
So the 400 staff, or the FTEs that are there, there'll be more than 400 staff, because as you point out, those are FTEs, they'll be presumably 450, 500 staff. They will be redistributed in the health sector, or they'll just be made redundant?
That will depend on who has the skills to meet the outcomes that we'll be looking for. To talk to your point, that's right, it was about 1.2 headcount for every FTE, so it could be 500 people or there or thereabouts. But we'll set out the new configuration then. That we need.
Okay. And finally, ACT are on the same page as you. You don't expect to have any difficulties on this matter in coalition agreement or arrangements?
Look, on this particular matter, we seem to be lockstep. But, those are discussions that happen if you're privileged to come into to coalition. But I think the general direction of travel is consistent between us.
All right. Shane, thank you very much for joining us again. Have a very good rest of the week, and I look forward to catching up with you again in the near future. That is Dr. Shane Reti, the National Health Spokesperson, on... this is extraordinary. Can I just tell you how extraordinary that is? If you don't know anything about how Parliament operates, and most of us don't, unless you're sort of there, and boy, it's a really weird world. Boy, is it weird. But anyhow, something as simple as how many people work for your department is not... you can't not answer that question. It's just like... But I can see what's happened is that under this government, perhaps, or certainly under Andrew Little, to not answer that question is not only to frustrate the democratic process deliberately by withholding information that should clearly be public and of which, we, the taxpayers of this country, contribute to, obviously, and want accountability for how our money is spent in the health sector. But it's just extraordinary that you would co-align that refusal with trying to sort things out before if you ever let that information go. And Shane Reti mentioned an independent review of the Maori Health Authority. It isn't just him that's after that. There are a large number of, in the health sector and the media as well, who are after that independent review of the Maori Health Authority. And Shane Reti's absolutely right. The scuttlebutt is, in media and public circles, that it is scathing. But to be honest with you, should that surprise us?